Most people think about trauma that comes from domestic violence or interpersonal violence is that it only affects the victim. What we're going to talk about in today's video is how trauma actually creates a ripple effect that ripples outward from the victim. It affects friends, family, and it can even be passed down through the generations. This intergenerational trauma is passed down in three main ways. The first is through epigenetic effects. The second is attachment styles, and the third is the way that stress is seen and experienced by the children of the person who's abused. So let's dive into each one of these ways to understand a little bit more the effects of trauma and domestic violence and how they spread outwards from the victim. So the first way that these effects are spread through the generations is through epigenetics. Epigenetics refers to the ways that genes are turned on or off by influences from our environment. Now, in the case of trauma, genes can actually be turned on that make you more prone to substance abuse later on, depression, other forms of mental disorders that may lead to behaviors that are influencing your children or the other people around you. These genes may also be passed down through the generations once they've been turned on and activated by the epigenetic effects of severe trauma. So, trauma can actually affect your genes themselves and lead to downstream effects that actually pass on the negative effects that your trauma has on your body and pass them down to your children and eventually even your grandchildren. The second way trauma is passed through the generations is through attachment styles. In the 1990s, John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, two researchers, discovered that attachment styles are created when you as a child attach to your primary caregiver. These attachment styles can have effects throughout the rest of your life, such as the way that you form romantic relationships or the ways that you form relationships with friends and family members. These can range from secure attachment on the positive end to insecure attachment on the negative end. So you want to be creating an environment where you are passing on a secure attachment style to your child. However, people who have been traumatized often pass down an insecure attachment style because due to the trauma, they often develop behaviors where they are more closed off, they are frightened, they are scared, they may be suffering from depression, and because of that, they are less likely to engage in a positive way with their children. This can lead to their children growing up and having an insecure attachment style, feeling insecure in their relationships, and eventually passing that negative attachment style down to their own children as well. And of course, if you have an insecure attachment style, that affects other things in your life, such as your romantic relationships and your familial and friend relationships as well, which can pass, again, those effects of trauma on to other people in your life. The third way that trauma influences other people in your life and creates intergenerational ripples is through stress. Stress is contagious, and researchers have found that stress is extremely contagious on children. So when you are feeling high stress, when you're feeling unable to regulate the emotional stress of something happening in your life, and you are around children, children can pick up on that stress, especially when it happens again and again. And in an abusive household, when someone is being abused and is in a high stress environment, that stress can easily be absorbed by your children, and they'll grow up having a higher degree of stress in their own life and being unable to regulate that stress for themselves, which then again creates a ripple effect where they then pass that down to their children. Now, all of these negative effects of trauma that are passed down to children, what does that really mean for their life? So what it means in effect is that the children are going to be more likely to develop severe mental disorders and have harmful behaviors that are passed throughout their life. Studies have found that children who grow up in families where they have been abused or where they're witnessing abuse are more prone to behavioral problems like ADHD and mental disorders such as depression and bipolar disorder. In these situations, these children grow up with more of a tendency to develop these harmful disorders that are going to have ripple effects on the rest of their life and again, make them more likely to pass down the effects of these disorders to their children as well. So you can really see how the effect of domestic abuse, partner abuse, and interpersonal violence really has a detrimental effect, not just on the person who is being abused, but by everyone in their life and their children and grandchildren. And when we start to think about it that way, it becomes not just an issue of taking care of the victim because we care about them. It becomes an issue of solving this issue because it's a harmful issue for society as a whole. So many people are affected by the issue of domestic violence that never were involved in it directly. And in order to solve that, we need to start working on this issue immediately. Thank you.